Hello, I am Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be talking about the Heroine rare egg machine that is coming back to North America on Boxing Day. So, on Boxing Day, we are going to be introduced to yet another 10-stone event. However, with that being said, the Heroine rare egg machine was one of the first 10-stone events beforehand, so this should not really come as much of a surprise. And in all honesty, the meta, so to speak, for rolling has basically just shifted completely into 10-stone events because Gung Ho is saying, like, we'll either give you, like, collateral benefits that we don't care for, or they're just higher value cards and make it cost 10 stones. Now, for the most part, these are still much better compared to regular Godfests, because regular Godfests have abysmally low rolling rates, and even though they do cost 5 stones, you'll roll 2 sadnesses, and whereas in these ones here, at least the 10-stone events, you have a strong possibility of rolling something of value. And that's just kind of the way it is. Now, obviously, it becomes much more difficult to IAP if that's something you do, or even just saving up magic stones unless Gung Ho keeps giving out a large amount on a regular basis. But regardless of saying all that, the Heroine Rare Machine is worthwhile to roll, assuming you don't have the 5-star cards, because they have quite a few strong quality options at the bottom rarity, which is what you're going to be most likely to actually roll. And of course, getting any of the diamond rolls will obviously be kind of just a nice little perk alongside of it. Now, if you do play any 4 times health leaders, so like say Beach Barbara and Julie especially, or Reune, you want to try and get your hands on Mel, because Mel is the single best enhanced Heart Orb Awakening stick in the game, and it's just going to allow you to basically trivialize the notion that you cannot heal, because Mel is just going to give you so much recovery. So, as an overview, there are 4 7-star cards, 8 6 stars, and then 6 5-star cards. And of course, they're not obviously ranked evenly. But Mel being a 5-star card is incredibly valuable, as well as Sheena, and then it's obviously just rarer cards towards the top. And then we progress down. So it's kind of like you should be rolling for Mel, and even getting Sheena is actually quite nice because she received a sizable buff just recently. So, for basically any card in the game, for limit breaking, if they have yellow text, they cannot be limit broken. If they have blue text, they can be limit broken, which means they can be leveled up all the way to level 110, and they have the chance to possibly acquire a Super Awakening if it's applicable for that card. So just keep an eye out for cards when they're in their final evolution form to see if they can be limit broken. The first card now is Ilmenite. So Ilmenite has always been an amazing card, but she's become even stronger after this most recent buff. So this most recent buff has dramatically bolstered her offensive capabilities when used as a leader. Her attack multiplier is now significantly higher. It's 10.5 times for devil type cards on a 7x6 board, which is incredibly high. So it just made her even more efficient at ranked dungeon farming, and even at used as a traditional leader, it's quite a competitive option. Remember, Diablos is only 8.5 times, whereas Ilmenite is 10.5. Yes, you have to be devil type. Yes, you have to match fire and light, but again, it's just a nicer option if that's something you choose to do so in her fire light form. And in her light red form, it's 7, same idea actually, but you have the damage reduction instead of the RCV component. So damage reduction is generally much more favorable compared to RCV, because you can find RCV elsewhere, or just correct your healing in some way, shape, or form. So Ilmenite has 4 skill boosts in the fire form, more time extend, got Killers of Attacker, God, Dragon, and she can get VDP, Bind Immunity, or L unlock. And all those are powerful Super Awakenings, and this is why she's so powerful for ranking dungeons. With 4 skill boosts, 100,000 true damage, and a bi-color board changer, it's hard to really compete. In her light form, she actually has a stupendously high amount of health now, so using her as a traditional sub can be worthwhile, but the only drawback is her damage output is going to be low because you only have a single 7 combo. It's just going to be like a big health stick. So how valuable that is to you, it really depends. So I've pretty much summarized most of her pros and cons, but for the most part, she is definitely luxurious. Like, in theory, as a 7x6 leader, you don't actually need to own one on your own, because the thing is, you just pair with a friend. You're not going to use 2 Ilmenites as leaders. That's redundant. You're going to pick Ilmenite plus something else with a higher multiplier, more efficient multiplier. So let's say you're doing ranking dungeons. You pair with an Ilmenite friend, use your own, say, Anubis, or whatever the dungeon is asking you to do. Like, basically, you have flexibility. So you don't have to own Ilmenite. Owning Ilmenite definitely opens up team building possibilities. It can make your life much easier, but again, it is not a mandatory card to actually own. So that's something you'd have to keep in mind. And Another drawback is that her active skill does not actually produce hard orbs. Her Christmas form produces hard orbs, but it all depends what you need more. Christmas form is a much better traditional card, but Ilmina is a much stronger ranking engine option because a bicolor board is much easier to match compared to a tri-elemental board. So Ilma is amazingly powerful. She's, for the most part, luxurious. Should you trade in for her? It really depends how much you love the fluffiness of her, as well as do you really want to sacrifice that many 7-star Godfits exclusives? Probably not. Urika has not changed since the last inception, and she can change the board to fire, water, wood, light, dark, and hard orb. So all 6 colors, so dark Kali style board changer, and then a Fujin style absorb, damage, void at the same time. So combining 2 useful effects, like even if you don't actually utilize the Fujin style ability, you at least have a board changer to use afterwards. So it's not a terrible secondary benefit. And for the most part, her blue form is the superior one because you gain you have a 7 combo instead of TPA, and you also have the recover bind, which gives you a bit more flexibility and utility. And super awakenings are the exact same, so you can either go double 7 combo, which is obviously more powerful if you want to have damage. Skill charge is stronger if you're able to incorporate rainbow based cards on your team. So for example, let's say you're playing someone like Edward. Edward already wants to use skill charge for himself anyways, so you're going to be rainbow oriented already. Having skill charge in that type of team is definitely going to be worthwhile. On the other hand, if you're using something like Reune or Beach Barber and Julie, you don't want the skill charge because you're very unlikely to actually have the full color coverage. So again, pick the super awakening that's best for you. So she is still a strong and powerful card. It's just with more and more Fujin style active skills being released, she's becoming less unique to the point where if you already have Fujin, rolling Urika may or may not actually benefit you that much by comparison, but she still is a powerful card. One thing to keep in mind is that because her cooldown is 24 turns, it's offset possibly by skill charge. It means that it makes her much more difficult to actually inherit because the cooldown is that much longer, and skill charge won't carry over through the inheritance. Planar has gone basically from mediocre to incredible just because Dark Metatron was released, and Planar is arguably the best follow-up attack option for Dark Metatron. So Planar has the same active skill in both forms, plus 3 combo count for 1 turn, and then a tri-elemental board changer of fire, dark, and heart orbs. So you're able to get that easy follow-up attack. You have more than enough plus combos to ensure you hit the 7 or more combo clause for basically any combo-oriented team. But the main thing that gives her the advantage is her awakenings for Dark Metatron teams. So Dark Metatron teams, for the most part, have issues with time extends. Some people may argue that, well, it's a player skill issue, but if you're playing with 7 or less seconds, it can be a bit more stressful to make the 7 or more combos, especially when you have to do follow-up attacks or 3x3 boxes. It can make your life much more difficult. And the reason why they have such low time extends is because the leaders only have 1 each. EIR has 0, and she's basically a mandatory sub. Izanagi has 2, and most other follow-up attack options have little to none. So Planar comes with 3 time extend awakenings, and that's why it's going to make your life significantly easier. When you hit that kind of like 8.5, 9 seconds, it becomes much more easy to max combo board. It's much more doable by comparison. You get time debuff by 1 or 2 seconds, you still can at least function. And Planar also has gigantic weighted stats. The active skill is valuable because plus combo count is always nice. Use it before your Dark Metatron for the easy 3x3 VDP boards, or you can use it for follow-up attack. But in addition to the massive stats and time extend, she has 2 7 combos in in solo mode. So she's actually quite a hard-hitting sub, lots of time extend, better than other time extend options like, say, regular Yomi, who does not provide damage or follow-up attack and also has a bad active skill by comparison. The fire form is not really used. For the most part, it's relatively ignored because Dark Metatron is one of the best leaders in the game. You want to have one of the best follow-up attack cards for her as possible. Okay, so Chiron, I can't say their name, is one of the new 7-star cards released, and she is arguably the weakest of all of them, which is unusual because usually when Gung-Ho would release new cards, they should be stronger to give more incentive for players to roll and chase. So their active skill is the same across both forms. It's plus 1 combo count, unlock all orbs, and then change the whole board to water and heart. So same board changer as Summer Yogg, but different collateral benefits. So that obviously has great applications on mono water teams. But the main issue is the best water team at this point is Beach Barbara and Julie, who cannot activate off this board. So Chiron cannot be used there at all. And Reunion definitely works as well. But again, if you have Beach Barbara and Julie, it's a much more appetizing card to use as a leader by comparison. As a leader, regardless of which form you take, you are going to have issues with consistency and activation. So her base form is 5 times attack when matching 6 or more connected orbs of any kind, so hazards or whatever it may be. So that's always doable. It's almost, if you played the most recent ranking dungeon, almost like 95, 99 plus whatever, like a huge amount of boards are going to have at least 6 of each type of orb, unless you have lots of hazards or other horrible things happening to it. You should be able to connect 6 or more orbs. So that's always doable. And then you also get on top of that 4 times attack and reduce damage taken by 25% when matching 5 or more connected water orbs. So if you don't get the 5 or more connected water orbs, you don't have full activation, you do not have damage reduction, you're going to have issues. And that's going to be a big problem because you can't necessarily efficiently stall because your damage reduction is tied to matching water as well as your damage output. So you're not stall. Whenever you're trying to stall, you're going to be killing it. So it's kind of counterintuitive in that regards, and there's less consistency overall. So that is problematic. And then, in theory, the plus combo Orb Awakenings, like, they are nice, but remember, I said I'd be probably using her as a sub on Reunion teams, and that's redundant, because double Reunion with Chiron is 4 plus combo Orb Awakenings, which doesn't work. You only can have maximum of 3 plus combo orbs on a board at a given time, so a bit of redundancy there. In her evolved form, her awakenings become team health and follow-up attack, but no personal damage. And then her leader skill is horribly glass cannony. It's 10 times attack when 6 or fewer orbs remain, so 100 times damage with a swipe on no skyfalls. And then the leader, and then in addition to that, it's 3 times attack for each cross of 5 water orbs. So on a 6x5 board, you can have 2 water crosses, but that also means like 1 water cross is 30 or 900 times damage when you leave 6 or fewer orbs. Not an easy task to do. 2 water orb matches is 90, 8,100 times. Things are dead anyways. But the point of the matter is, this is not an easy leader skill to activate. There's no damage reduction. There's no survivability built in. If you're going to be using a high risk, high reward leader, why not use Amen? Like, it's just going to be more damage. That's much easier to activate by comparison. So, unfortunately, she is not going to be that practical to use. Like, Reunion teams might have some merit for her, but other than that, it's a little hard to truly justify. But I guess to a certain extent, her base form can make a reasonable leader if you're able to get enough water orbs on a regular basis. And now we come to the 6-star cards. So many of the 6-star cards did not receive any buffs or help whatsoever, so they've just basically kind of diminished over time. And Mary is a big example of one of those. When she first came out, she was one of the stronger traditional and farming leaders in the game. And for myself, I was actually able to farm Arena 3 and Coliseum quite consistently in co-op mode before like Fall of Attack and many other types of awakenings were released. So that damage control of the no skyfalls made a big difference. But unfortunately, she did not receive really much in the way of buffs, and she still heavily relies on co-op to succeed because she has no health multiplier. She's vulnerable to binds, no skill bind resist. It makes her team building much more cumbersome and difficult by comparison. So she has mostly transitioned into, like, say, a no awakening leader because it's easy to match blobs of water. She's also used as farming, but she can be used for medium to somewhat high difficulty dungeons, especially in co-op when you have the extra health to kind of piggyback. But one other thing you can do is pair of a Reunion. Let's say you had Mary, never rolled Reunion. You can pair together. You're going to be having maybe like 70, 80,000 plus health with a healthy amount of 2.25 times recovery. It means you don't have to run Mel. So it can be some flexibility. Yes, the no Skyfall can cap your damage, which is going to be problematic, but it is something to consider at the same time. So she is still viable. Like, I still use my Mary actually reasonably often. Like I said, if there's like a no awakening dungeon that is doable, or 4-second or movement time dungeon, I use Mary quite often because blobbing is very easy to do with this. And even for like modest difficulty stuff, it's fast because of the no skyfalls, so she still can definitely help you out. And in theory, with Machine Noah being released, you do have a strong full board changer of water available to basically hasten your progress through a dungeon. Julie used to be actually a strong leader, and then over time it just went downhill so quickly. Just because her attack multiplier is only 56.25 times damage. Like, what is that nowadays? That's so small compared to what we have available at this point in time. Yes, she does have 2.25 times health and damage reduction, but when your damage output is so low, it's quite a bit harder to manage. Like, she's the same damage output as Green and Blue Sonya, but Green and Blue Sonya are stronger options overall because they have better awakenings and much better active skills, as well as just having, like, it's just, they're stronger cards overall. So Green and Blue Sonya have already fallen out to a certain extent. They're still usable, but they're just not as overwhelming and overpowering as they used to be, because 4 times health teams are just more consistent overall. So Julie does exist. Like, she can still clear plenty of content, but again, she's just being overshadowed by newer things available. And one of the main reasons why she's having issues is because of her active skill. And her active skill is Balboa, which is quite situational, to be honest. Like, it's rare you need to use Balboa because you can use things like Guard Break to have the ability to penetrate through that defense naturally without wasting an active skill, or you just use something with a high enough multiplier that can just punch through anyways. Like, we have ways to overcome it. Like, for instance, I can see Julie's style active skill being utilized in the new training arena, but again, I use Guard Break or I just use Overwhelming Force and just pierce my way through anyways. So again, it's more situational compared to beforehand because we now have more powerful options at our disposal. Next is El Ganubi, and El Ganubi technically got buffed, but it's hard to kind of save her, so to speak, because it just doesn't work that well. Like, yes, she has 7 enhanced Fire Orb Awakenings, but again, we have quite a few different red cards that can offer this as well, while providing other types of utility. Her active skill is still strong if you're playing like a mono red team that can rely on blobbing or rows instead of combos, because it will overflow the board with red and make it somewhat impossible to 7 combo. But her big buff came in the form of gaining an extra skill boost and having a stronger leader skill. So her leader skill in theory is powerful. It's 2.25 times health and recovery along with 182.25 times attack. So that's good on paper, but the problem is you have to match 5 orb 1 enhance of fire most likely, and then you have to use machine type cards as well. So there are very few strong fire machine cards in the game, so her team building options are severely limited. Most players won't be able to field even a respectable team whatsoever, and that's going to be problematic because, well, what are you going to stick on your team then at that point? So that is a big hurdle, and of course 5 orb 1 enhanced teams do have the issue of having to have enhanced orbs. If things get orb changed away due to hazards or whatnot, or you use orb changers and you didn't have anything enhanced, it's going to be problematic. So it's a cool playstyle. I like it, but it's just not going to pay off enough at this point in time. Next is Romia, and Romia has the same active skill as Zuo, a full board to wood, dark, and fire orbs on a short 8-turn cooldown, so easy enough to inherit over top. Her leader skill is just 7x6 with 5 times attack. It's too low to be serviceable. There are much better options at this point in time, and it comes down to using her as a time extends stick on combo-based teams. So in terms of damage output, there are stronger options available, especially if playing in co-op mode, because a single dragon and a single 7 combo is usually not enough. When you get the Super Awakenings, her damage output does definitely skyrocket, which can be meaningful. And even though Wood does have many strong damaging cards available at this point in time, using Romia can be valuable because she offers you plus 2 seconds due to her 4 time extend awakenings. So if you're playing something like Zila, who doesn't have movement time built into her leader skill, having Romia as a sub can definitely be meaningful because you will be able to always hit those 7 combos. You can inherit something easily over top of Romia and be on your merry little way. So she is still definitely an option. It's kind of like Yuna, but I place more value on Yuna because double 7 combo is better than Dragon 7, and Yuna's shield is better than a board changer. Again, that's a personal preference at that point. Navi has actually become a significantly more powerful card, a surprisingly more powerful card. Her active skill is still the same. It's still a light Kali board changer, so no hearts, and a single turn of haste. But her leader skill became significantly stronger. You're able to change the board to 7x6, and then all cards 5 times attack, 5 times RCD when matching any 3 colors. So you can use tri-elemental board changers and still do large amounts of damage, which is nice. And then you have plus 5 seconds of orb movement time. So yes, 5 times attack is not much, 5 times recovery is huge, but 5 extra seconds of orb movement time can be invaluable. And where this can be very valuable is in no awakening dungeons, where you don't actually have extra time extend awakenings, and you just have to rely on leader skills or player skill. So you could pair Navi with something like Reach or something that just has higher damage output as well at the same time. And that way you'd actually have a 7x6 board, depending on who you pair. If you have minimum 9 seconds of orb movement time, which should be enough on a 7x6 board. So you have a big board, you have extra movement time, and you have a huge amount of 5 times recovery as well. So this definitely can be a viable option for many players. And I actually have a Navi on Mantastic, and I'm looking forward to starting using her as a leader for certain situations. But her excitement doesn't stop there. She actually naturally has 2 7 combos, and if you get Super Awakenings, it's a third 7 combo. So you can use her as a leader, of course, but you can also use her as a sub. And as a sub, it's a 777 combo light card, which there are many at this point in time, but having more is never necessarily a bad thing. You can definitely use it on Yusuke teams, Edward teams, and do wonderful amounts of damage. And the only main drawback I can foresee is that the 4 skill bind resist is a little redundant, but having 2 skill boosts and 4 skill bind resist can be good for certain farming build setups that rely very heavily on whale doors. Barbara has not received too much love lately, but she has Devil, Machine, and Healer killers, but her Super Awakening gives her Double Machine Killer, which definitely gives her a little more punch against those type of spawns. Her board changer, albeit a long 16 turn cooldown, is quite powerful. You are able to have a board of Fire and Dark Orbs, and then Dragon and Machine type cards 2.5 times damage. So you can have a nice powerful bi-color board changer with a burst for those types of cards. So certain farming builds definitely can appreciate this, can be situationally useful on certain teams, but as a leader, it's just not strong enough. 4 times health and 4 times recovery is nice, with 64 times damage is okay, but because you cannot match less than 4 connected orbs, it's going to be problematic. So she's situational to use, but again, it's nice to be able to pull this out of your pocket as needed. And the fact that she has 3 skill boosts definitely can alleviate some team building constraints. Next is Erica, and Erica is stronger than before, but not as strong as she was in theory upon release, because stronger cards have been released. So she still has double 7 combo with the healer and attacker awakenings, which means she has great damage against the Metatrons in 3-player arena or alt arena, and she can gain an extra healer or attacker killer through Super Awakenings, which definitely can make a big difference on certain team setups, especially when playing through alt arena and you encounter I forgot one of the spawns, but I think it's Ikabari, who I think might be attacker typing, so she can just smash their way through that 200 plus million health without much problem. So definitely has merit there on those teams, so things like Edward will definitely appreciate Erica. Her active skill is pretty strong. It's a 2-turn delay with wood, light, dark, and hard board changer. So a pretty decent board changer, definitely can be used on things like Edward or as an inherit on Dark Metatron teams, or any just combo-based team that's not reliant on specific colors. But having the delay built in does add turns to the cooldown, but it's a reasonable secondary effect because lots of things can be delayed still. Like things like Gaia, the Metatrons, they can be delayed. So this does have value even if you don't necessarily use the board that well. Having the option of delaying can definitely make a big difference. And her only main drawback is that she is technically, like, her killers are pretty situational. It's just attacker, it's just healer. Like, not many spawns are attacker healer, so it's kind of like you will use her for certain content where it's definitely going to have effect, but otherwise, other double 7 combo cards tend to be more valuable if they bring other awakenings you might need, something like, say, Cottons for those follow-up attacks. So, still a powerful card, it's just other damaging sticks have come out at this point in time that can kind of surpass her, so to speak. And then the last 6-star card is Aurea, who is a new card. It's basically like Fire Reach, but weaker. Similar active skill, Heart to Fire, and then ignore Damage Absorb and ignore Color Absorb. So needing those two at the same time is very rare. The only place that I can foresee that being used, not quite at the same time, but having both ready, is Arena 3, where Hera Dragon or Gaia Dragon can spawn. Hera or Noah Dragon can spawn on the same floor. Noah absorbs colors, Hera absorbs damage. You can negate those absorbs and then kill accordingly. So it gives you a little bit of flexibility in that regards. But other than that, it's hard to really justify using both at the same time. And it's on a 25 turn cooldown, so not the greatest inherit if you're just gunning for the Fujin style active skill. But if you use them as a sub or a leader, their 2 skill charges mean that this is going to charge up in basically 9 turns. So basically 9 turns with 8 turns with 9 turns with full skill charging and 1 turn of no skill charge. So the fastest charging Fujin style active skill possible. So that definitely has value. But the problem is if you're using them as a leader, it's not as great. It's a lower damage output compared to reach, and that's the big issue there. You have lower damage output, and the fact that your Awakenings lack 7 combos means you're not dealing much damage with your leaders if you do double Aurea. Like, the double Devil Killer is definitely useful in certain scenarios, and the attack when hot 80% health or more can add a little bit of damage, but 7 combos are so much more powerful and universal by comparison that Reach is definitely a better option overall. So it's kind of like Reach Light, but again, it's still a reasonably strong leader. Pair with someone else who has 7 combos, and you can still lead a reasonably respectable team overall. And now we come to the 5-star cards. So Kuvia is basically just a giant TPA stick. And unfortunately, TPAs are not in a good place at this point in time, so it's really hard to justify using her. Her double orb changer gives you wood and light to fire, and then 2 turns of heart skyfalls. So you think maybe in no heart dungeons this could help, but it's only 2 turns. It's not that long. You're better off using a board changer that makes hearts to guarantee yourself that healing. And again, flooding a board with fire orbs is not that important in all honesty. Very few teams can definitely take advantage of it. But remember, the fact that it's lots of TPAs is problematic because TPAs are just nowhere near as desirable because they take up more space, it can prevent combos being formed, and the only TPA owning cards can actually benefit from the extra damage. Unlike 7 combos, which is just everyone just combos naturally, most cards have 7 combo as well. And now we come to arguably one of the star of the whole event, which is Mel. So Mel upon release was one of the worst cards because Enhanced Heal Over Awakenings did not do very much whatsoever. We didn't have these gigantic health teams that needed to heal up because most things were kind of balanced, like 2.25 times recovery, something along those lines. So Mel didn't have much purpose or use, but with the Enhanced Heal Orb Awakenings becoming so much stronger, she's now become one of the best subs in the game. So the way Enhanced Heal Orb Awakenings work is that each Heart Orb does provide more healing, which makes sense, but when you match 4 connected Heart Orbs, you receive a significant boost in healing, and it does not have a cap or limit. It just continues to stack with more and more Enhanced Heal Orb Awakenings. So the more Enhanced Heal Orb Awakenings you have in your team, the more you gain from the more healing output you generate. So Mel with 6 is going to generate more than any other card available. EIR has 3 by comparison, and she's still great, so just keep that in mind. Mel is providing so much more healing overall. So this is why she's used on Beach Barbara and Julie teams, Reunion teams, or even teams that really need to desperately heal up and you don't have any other option. Mel solves that, because the thing is, instead of using active skills to heal up, you basically just passively match Heart Orbs and you heal at the same time. Of course, Mel is not without fault. The fact that she can never become bind immune means that if she's bound, you can no longer you still can match 4 heal orbs, but you don't receive the massive healing boost, so that is problematic. And again, when they're also bound, Heart Orbs don't fall down enhanced. So being vulnerable to binds means that you're going to be running the risk of not being able to heal in an emergency. They also have no personal damage. They have a single TPA, which is really nothing in all honesty. So they produce very little damage as well. So you're basically just sacrificing kind of one sub slot for a giant healing stick. It's worthwhile overall, but just bear in mind that she is not contributing damage. And the fact that her active skill technically spawns the column of hearts this one column over is not as ideal for follow-up attacking, because it's nicer if the column of hearts is on the far side. So you spend a little bit of extra time moving. If that's an issue, it may or may not be, because like sometimes I've used like my Beach Barbara and Julie active skill, so a bicolored board of fire and water, and then popped Mel afterwards. I have to reshuffle the Heart Orbs over, or depending on the board, I just leave them there. So again, it all depends on the scenario, but I prefer if the column is on the outermost side. Next is Mito, and Mito would have been stronger if Chazelle didn't exist, because Chazelle has 3 Devil Killers naturally, Mito has 2. Chazelle has 2 skill boosts, Mito has 1. But on the other hand, Mito does have full bind immunity, It does have guard break, so it has a bit more utility in that regards. They have only a 4-turn active skill, so easier to inherit over top of. And in theory, Mito with 3 Devil Killer latents does more damage than Chazelle with no killers, because Chazelle cannot also equip Devil Killers, so it does give you a bit of option there. But Mito is still definitely worthwhile and much more important to you if you don't actually own Chazelle. Mamaji was a reasonable card upon release because follow-up attack was quite rare, and the fact that she comes ready to use was an advantage. She comes with a nice tri-elemental board changer with hearts right out of the box, so low investment, pretty high rewarding card. The Super Awakenings are not necessary, so again, for a newer account, Mamaji might provide value for yourself. Like say you have Edward, you don't have Cottons, you have Mamaji right out of the box, ready to use. It is nice and helpful, but she does definitely get quickly replaced over time when stronger follow-up attack options become available. Sheena became buffed for 500 plus attack, so she does even more damage, and she has triple killer. She has physical, machine, and devil. Now, devil is new, so huge amount of potential personal damage. She has an extra 7 combo naturally, and Super Awakenings means she can get an extra 7 combo or VDP. So because of this flexibility, you tend to want to have lots of Sheenas to fulfill different roles, because Sheena can also use physical, machine, and devil killer latents. So you make one Sheena specialize at killing machines, another say specialized killing physical, and either take 7 combos or VDP accordingly, so you have a very potent and powerful sub. And the fact that she's able to change the whole board to light and dark orbs on a 12-turn cooldown with no animation means that ranking dungeons appreciate it, and also it's a bit easier to inherit if you're concerned about skill boosts. And then lastly we come to Runeless. So Runeless still is not that great, but becomes a little bit stronger just because L Awakenings have been improved to the point where in Japan in a couple months they'll come here, they're more significant, but you still can technically find inherits that will give the L Awakening. You only need one to really capitalize on it, and relying on your damage source from L's is not practical, but they did gain another 7 combo and then gain a second one via Super Awakening, so double 7 combo is a reasonable damage output. But by having 4 enhanced Heal Orb Awakenings means that Mono Wood teams, all the subs and all the cards in the team are going to be dealing even more damage. And that is a big deal because suddenly your whole team is dealing more damage. So even if one card is dealing a little less, everyone else performs better. That definitely has merit and value. And the fact that you do change 2 types of orbs to wood without converting hearts is nice because you can heal, deal damage, and you also get plus 1 second of orb movement time, which can override those nasty debuffs. So Runeless did definitely become stronger. It's just not to the level we want it necessarily to be. Like, it's definitely above average now. So if you rolled Runeless in the past, the big buffs to the extra 7 combos and Super Awakenings makes them much more valuable. And things like Zila teams or Vraska teams definitely like to have this nice enhanced Wood Orb Awakenings because everyone just does more damage. So, in conclusion, the Heroine Rare Machine is definitely worthwhile to roll in, assuming you don't actually have the 5-star cards. You want to try and collect them all because this is not necessarily Pokemon, but it's going to be providing you with value and utility you cannot replicate elsewhere. And in all honesty, picking up yourself a Mel is so valuable nowadays. Like, you really want to have Mel because it's going to be hard to kind of dethrone the 4 times health leaders because they're just so efficient at what they do. They can tank all the preemptives in the game, and the fact that they can heal up easily without sacrificing active skills is amazing. So, let me know what you think about this event in the comments below and how much you actually plan on rolling. Hopefully you all have a fantastic day. I wish you all the best of luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.